baby is born before 37 weeks of pregnancy are completed. To start us off on this interesting conversation on reproductive health is Ruby Kimondo, who's going to take us through Premie Love Foundation, which is a community of mothers, fathers, friends, and families who have babies who were born too soon. Karibu sana, Ruby.
Thank you, Joy.
So tell us about Premie Love and what brought you to start this group.
Premie Love basically is just a group of moms who've given birth prematurely. So to give birth prematurely or to have a preterm baby is to have your baby delivered before 37 weeks of pregnancy, as you've said. And Premie Love was born out of my own experiences with prematurity, and it was nothing that it is right now when I started it. All I ever just wanted was to reach out to another mother like me, and let's share experiences when we go home. Yeah, so since it started, we were just 2 of us, then we were 3, then we were 4, then we were 10, then we were 15, 20, and now it has grown. We have many mothers, majority of the mothers are from Nairobi, but we also have mothers from, because of social media, so then you have mothers in Mombasa, Kisumu, spread out in Nyeri, yeah.
What's the story behind Premie Love and, from your personal story?
The preterm birth experience is really just a love story. It has its share of joys, heartbreaks, but just like love, yeah? And that is why I called it Premie Love. I started Premie Love because I have 4 children. And through all 4 pregnancies, I've had a condition called pre-eclampsia. So pre-eclampsia, from where I sit as a mother, was a condition I would develop when I would get to about halfway through my pregnancy, from around 20 weeks. I didn't know anything about pre-eclampsia with my first baby. I was 26 years old, and I had no idea of anything called pre-eclampsia. But I would regularly go for my clinics, and they would check my urine, they would take my blood pressure, those normal procedures you go through when you go for clinic when you're pregnant. But I never really used to ask why are you checking my urine, what are you looking for, some of those things, you just go through them. And then the early months of pregnancy, the duration between clinics is not so short, so you could have like 4 weeks, sometimes even longer. So in one such space between one clinic and the next, I had traveled. I was working, so I had traveled to Dar es Salaam by bus, and you know how long the trip is. So I had my feet had really gotten swollen. But I thought this, when I was in Dar es Salaam now, I felt this is normal pregnancy, because I could remember my aunties, I could remember seeing people in the neighborhood, pregnant women, always had swollen feet, so no big deal. So I traveled back to Nairobi, and on Monday I was back in the office, and now it wasn't just my feet. I was too big. My hands were so swollen, and my face was round.
And when you went to see your gyna, what were the major concerns?
So I didn't immediately go to see my gyna because I was in the office and I had access to the internet. So I did a small research. Even now, if you just go to Google and swollen hands and feet and face in pregnancy, you get all the information about preeclampsia. So when I typed those words, I just got preeclampsia on the screen. So I was sure, I was like, this is it, yeah, just by seeing how swollen I was, because I was totally big. Yeah, so then I left the office and I went to hospital, and that's when they checked my urine and they found it's got protein in it. That's when now I started understanding, okay, so they look for such things in urine during the clinic visits. And my blood pressure was really up as well, so I was admitted immediately. I didn't have a personal gyna. It was my first pregnancy, so I was just going to deliver at the hospital. So I was being attended to by the normal staff during normal clinic. So, and I was being attended to now by the hospital doctors.
So comes a time and you're told that your baby has to be born, sooner than you expect. How soon were your 4 babies born, compared to the expected date of delivery? So
that first baby, I think by the time I was going to hospital, I was at 24 weeks. I spent about 4 weeks on bed rest, and just trying to manage the blood pressure and maybe other things that I wouldn't have been aware of. But by the time we were hitting 28 weeks, they said they couldn't push it anymore. I was not getting any better. Well, they say with preeclampsia, you will hardly, it won't go away. And the only way preeclampsia will go away is through delivery of the baby. So they try to manage you as much as possible without your blood pressure really going crazy. But at 28 weeks is when he was delivered. My second, the experience, even though I had been forewarned, I had foresight, I knew what to expect, the experience was just as terrible. Once I hit 20 weeks, 21, 22, by 24 weeks, I was back to where I was with my first pregnancy. So, but him, we were able to push it till 30 weeks. My third baby, by this time I had stopped working. I quit my job after my second baby. So, and I never went back to work. So when I got pregnant with my third baby, I was at home most of the time. So we were able to manage it because I could say the entire 38 weeks, because he came at 38 weeks, I still had the condition, but it was well managed, and I was on bed rest, like every day I was at home, very few errands here and there. And I was on drugs from almost literally day one. So I don't know what happened. Really, I don't know what happened. He came
Maybe it was a peace of mind.
Yeah, I suppose
and you know
so.
what you were dealing with.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he came at 38 weeks. Well, the doctor said we can't go past 38 weeks, so let's deliver now. So with my fourth, I had hoped for a similar experience with my third, but things went wrong so fast when I got to, I think, 32 weeks. Okay, my blood pressure went up at 30 weeks, but at 32 weeks now things suddenly quickly escalated, and he had to be delivered at 34 weeks.
Okay, yeah. Now you have 4 of your babies who've been born, sooner than expected. For each one of them, how was that experience at the neonatal intensive care unit?
I think it's an experience that you never really would prepare for. Even if you've gone through it once, I don't think it's different every time. Yeah, so you can't really say because I went through it the first time. I mean, you're seeing your baby there in the incubator looking so helpless and struggling and fighting for their life. Even if you've been through it the first time, but your baby, your second baby or your third baby is going through it the first time, it's a difficult experience. So it's difficult, it's draining emotionally. If I could go back to my first pregnancy, when I was there in hospital admitted, and the doctors would come and they would just try to ease me and tell me, you know what, we've delivered babies even younger than 28 weeks. The nurses would tell me we had a 26-weeker, we had a 25-weeker who survived. So I was hopeful. I was like, not so bad. No, it's okay. The baby it will be okay. And since I had never seen a preterm baby, I was not worried. I think I was in just a weird space, full of drugs and all these assurances from the doctor that things will be fine. So I was not worried until I saw my baby. Wow, I had never seen anything like that. Yeah? I had thought it would be a small baby. I had just thought it would be a really small baby because, oh, God, it was a baby literally fighting for each and every breath. As in, you could see his chest, he's really struggling to breathe. You could see all his ribs, his hands, his feet were, like moving about. There were little jerking movements, like he's struggling. And then now the oxygen on his face and all these wires, and then in the incubator, and then all these beeps, all these machines. It's just that sight itself is very traumatizing. I don't know what I was expecting, that I'd find a very tiny baby in compact, yeah. But it was crazy. So that was, at that point is when now I was okay, but at that time I broke down and I cried at the nursery.
Fast forward, away from those 4 experiences, how are the babies now? What do you see when you look at each one of them?
They are good, but I had to sacrifice a lot. After I quit my job after my second baby, even my first son, my first baby, when I was in hospital, I was working, but after we were discharged, I quit, and for 2 years I stayed home with him. So I stayed home with him, I made sure I breastfed him myself, and I took care of him myself. until he went to school. So he went to school, and then that's when I went back to work. Then I got my second baby. After him, I also quit my job. After I quit my job, then I never went back to work. I said, let me just stay home. So I've managed to go through prematurity 4 times, getting 4 babies, having 4 difficult pregnancies, but I was able to do this over a space of, I could say, 10 years comfortably at home. So for the last 10 years, from between now and 10 years ago, I have concentrated on taking care of my children. Yeah, and it's just recently when my last born started play group is when I've now fully gone back to employment, to work. Yeah.
And what are the joys of sharing your experiences with other mamas in Premie Love?
Premie Love is just a beautiful experience. Mothers getting together and sharing experiences. What makes it stand out, what makes it work is the fact that we have a group of mothers who've been through this experience, walking and guiding other mothers who are just getting into the experience. We are not medics, we are not experts, we just but I think our experiences are rich, and there are a myriad of experiences. I have pre-eclampsia, there's somebody else who the water broke, all kinds of reasons for why the baby was born early. So the sharing of experiences, bonding with somebody who's been there, I think it's easier to accept outcomes from people who've experienced these outcomes. When you're with the doctors and they're telling you what the outcomes of prematurity could be, because not all outcomes are positive. We also have bad outcomes. But if I'm telling the mothers the different outcomes, I had delayed milestones, I struggled with breastfeeding, I struggled with infections, my baby's weight issues were so many. You get a relief. At least somebody else has gone through, so you're able to walk that journey. So I think the only thing that works in Premie Love is just connecting mothers, and I'll keep on just reaching out to mothers and connecting them, and the sharing of experiences just helps them.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate and keep up the good work. So there you have it. Walking a mile in someone's life is worth it, and it's life-changing, and that is what Premie Love is doing. So get in touch with Ruby and get to learn more about handling and dealing with Premie Love children, who end up being children who actually then by the age of 5, I'm sure then you can hardly tell that this child was premature.